Eunice Mason, our correspondent in Cape Town, joins us now to tell us about this open letter. Eunice, you wrote an article on this letter, this open letter by the Afrikaans community. Just take us through exactly what the points were.
Yes, so thank you for having me. And as you've mentioned, this group of prominent Afrikaners includes writers, academics, and business leaders. They publicly pushed back against what President Donald Trump claims of so-called white genocide in South Africa. So this group issued an open letter, which is called Not in Our Name, rejecting Trump's repeated allegations. And the letter was also sent to the U.S. senators, some U.S. senators, to counter what they say is misinformation. So when we briefly look at the open letter, it responds directly to Trump's refugee policy, wanting to prioritize white Afrikaners seeking asylum. Now, in the letter, the authors state that white Afrikaners are not under existential threat and that by portraying them as victims of racial persecution, not only distorts reality, but also damages relationships built over 30 years since the end of apartheid. They also argue that to elevate white suffering above others reinforces a racialized worldview. And the letter's publication exposed a deep internal divisions within the Afrikaner community in itself, between the left-leaning commentators who have welcomed it, but also the right-leaning groups, particularly AfriForum and Solidarity, who have criticized it strongly, saying that the authors, many of whom are academics, are out of touch with the lived experience of South Africans. Now, keep in mind, AfriForum and Solidarity have for years now already been lobbying in the US against racial and land reform laws and also farm attacks in South Africa. Now, just to balance the article, we've also tried to understand why some South Africans would seek asylum. And we spoke to a refugee family who have relocated in late August. And according to the refugee, they feel safer in the US than in South Africa. And also their members of the family, 3 members of the family, have been victims of a farm attack. And the refugee also added that they are also financially growing much faster in the US. And lastly, we just have to mention that at this moment, we don't know the exact number of of refugees who have applied for the status in America. It is understood that by the end of September, there were about 400 in total, but more people can still apply under Trump's refugee resettlement program at this stage.
And we're seeing that in the state of Maine, they say that they will be accepting up to 50 Afrikaners at least by the end of the year. Eunice, thank you so much. Let's bring in now into the conversation one of those signatories of the open letter, Piet Kroukamp, Associate Professor of Political Studies and International Relations at Northwest University in South Africa, as well as Ernst Roets. You can see him there on the screen. He's the Deputy CEO of the Afrikaner-focused civil rights organization AfriForum, which Eunice was mentioning. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. We are obviously sitting on 2 diametrically opposed sides of the same coin here. Piet, I'm going to start with you. What made you feel so strongly to initiate this letter and to bring the signatories forward?
Look, I don't have to convince you that we had a atrocious past of racial divisions, racism, institutionalized racism, formalized racism, constitutionalized racism, and to some extent the liberal democratic constitution of 1994 to 1996 liberated us from being the perpetrators of this racist in this racist regime. And since then, it is a 10 years, but a very difficult process to build the relationships of trust. And I think we've made significant progress in that regard. So when Donald Trump, and I think it's our argument was that it's part of the Trump regime, the Trump administration, the way that they portray or the way that they understand their own race relationships in America, that they seek to in some other way export that by latching onto Afrikaners in South Africa, and in the process tainting the character of Afrikaners who wish to stay in South Africa, who have decent and qualified relationships with Black South Africans and see themselves as Africans, primarily see themselves as South Africans, and we thought that we can't afford that Our presence here in South Africa and in Africa are being used, or is being used, by the Trump regime to, in some other way, justify his own racial agenda in America, and leaves us as sort of a victim, as if he's prostituting Afrikaners to a certain degree for his own political ends. And we felt that there are enough. In fact, there are a large number of so-called right-wing voices in South Africa that has to be countered. We have to set the record straight that we don't all think like that, and that there is no evidence that that there's a racial genocide in South Africa, and that's the word that Trump has used, and that there's our future in this country is not being threatened by the fact that we are white and that the majority of this country, the people, are black.
Ernst Roets, you don't agree?
Yeah, well, thank you. Let me just do a quick clarification to start with. I know the producers who reached out to me are aware of this, but I'm not with AfriForum anymore. I used to be Deputy CEO at AfriForum. I'm now head of a new think tank called Lex Libertas. So I just want to make that clarification that I don't speak on behalf of AfriForum. But what we see happening in South Africa, and with this particular case, is there are some real tangible issues, there are some real problems, and there are some real debates on how to define these problems. But unfortunately, the response by this list of predominantly academics is in a sense not that unique to South Africa. It's an age-old phenomenon of a certain class of intellectual elites, especially university professors, people who are very senior in the media, and people in the entertainment industry and so forth, who have a very strong ideological slant in a particular direction, and who unfortunately have become very detached from realities on ground level, who seem to have become caught up in their own intellectual and ideological endeavors to such an extent that they are disconnected from what people experience on a daily basis. And so what is really alarming and annoying and frustrating about this is that there are some real tangible issues happening in South Africa. And these people who are now expressing their concern about what they call the narrative are playing into the hands of the ANC, the ruling party in South Africa, who have become a completely destructive force since they took power. And they are, in a sense, by rushing to the defense of those in power, of the political elite, they are allowing the political elite to get away with murder. And unfortunately, it's not just in the figurative sense of the word.
But do you think that rushing to the political elite of America is the solution? Do you not both fear, because you have both appeared to Republicans, in your case, Ernst Roets, and also recently Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat, in your case, that was Piet Kroukamp. Do you not think that the Americanization of these South African problems is not helpful in itself? And I'm going to start with you, Ernst.
Well, one could make that point, but the fact of the matter is that countries are intertwined, economics are intertwined, South Africa and America are trading with each other, and there's this strange perception, and I know people like Professor Kroukamp and his colleagues who have signed this letter seem to believe, and they seem to want people to believe, that the American government would not have taken a stance if they were not, as they say, fed with false information. As if the American government is so gullible and don't have access to their own communications and intelligence networks, where some NGO from some other country can just come and provide them with false information, and then they would make certain policy decisions based on that. Firstly, the information provided to the American government is not false. Secondly, the American government has their own capacity to do intelligence and to make their own decisions. And so, but economics and politics, unfortunately, are intertwined. And there are some important reasons why it is also in the interest of America to have some form of stability in South Africa. So even if no one were to rush to the American elites, as you say, the American government would still have taken a stance about this.
But that's despite the fact that Donald Trump himself, at that meeting with Cyril Ramaphosa, we saw that in the pictures, still projected false information about farm murders. It's not to say that there isn't some underlying truths to it, but what he projected was false. Let me just go back to
no, that's a bit disingenuous to put it like that.
Piet, in terms of what Ernst is saying, what is your response? Who actually represents the Afrikaner society? Is it yourself as an academic, or is it Ernst Roets, an activist?
I don't think any of us claim to represent Afrikaner society, but maybe I just should put one thing straight. AfriForum themselves deny Donald Trump's argument that there is white genocide in South Africa. So if Donald Trump's information was as credible as Ernst Roos seems to imply, he would not have disagreed with AfriForum, who says there is no white genocide in South Africa. So clearly Donald Trump is wrong in terms of what everybody else, me, us, as well as AfriForum, saying the right-wing groups in South Africa are saying. So his information can't be that credible in the first place. The second place is the argument that we are isolated and we are uninformed. Less than 1% of the more than 1,000 people that signed the letter are academics and people of media. It's not true. I myself have made 2 series of 26 documentaries on agriculture in South Africa, the farming community, which is the main concern of Roots. I have farmed myself for 14 years. Max de Pre, the other signatory, which originated the letter, he himself farmed for more than 10 years in South Africa. So we're not in some other way isolated from the realities of South Africa. And I have written extensively on crime in South Africa. I've done extensive research on violence in South Africa. We are well-informed people. We're not idiots. We're not left-wing. I think you initially said we are left-wing. There's no evidence that we are left-wing. In fact, we're pragmatists, we're constitutionalists, we're people who believe in a democracy. We're not left-wing in any way. We're not any ideology. So I think Ernst got his facts wrong, and he persists with that. By the way, Ernst has deep roots in Urania. Urania, and his past are rooted in Urania. Urania is a white enclave which seeks for a self-proclamation of their identity in a very specific area, the Afrikaners and the whites. That is somebody with an agenda. So if I can return to the idea of Donald Trump, of course Trump doesn't know what's going on in South Africa because he gets his facts wrong. And even the people who disagree with us about this letter will agree with us that he is wrong on that fact that there is no genocide, white genocide in South Africa. It seems like it's only Roots. Maybe we should ask Aaron Roots, does he think that there is a white genocide in South Africa? And if he says yes, then he disagrees with everybody else in South Africa because there's nobody that will agree with him on that.
Ernst, would you like to respond to that? Otherwise, I can just ask you, is it helpful that Donald Trump thinks that there's a genocide in South Africa, and why hasn't anyone actually gone to him and said that this isn't happening?
Well, I can tell you I'm very convinced that I have done more than probably anyone else in South Africa to explain why it's not accurate to describe what is happening in South Africa as a genocide. I've even written a book on the topic of farm murders with a chapter dedicated to explaining why it's not genocide. But the issue here is that there are many things that have been said about South Africa. And yes, some things are accurate descriptions and some things aren't. But if a person raises a list of things about some serious concerns about the country, and one of the conclusions is debatable, one cannot make the conclusion that the entire bundle of concerns has to be addressed or rejected instead. So what we see here is that people like Piet Kroukamp and his colleagues have this strange obsession with genocide, and they keep talking about how the American government are spreading lies about genocide and so forth, when the American government have said a lot of things. They have said that they are concerned about the race laws in South Africa. They have said that they are concerned about the farm murders. They are concerned about the threats to property rights. They are concerned about all these things, the persecution of minorities, for which there's tangible evidence. But all of these real, tangible, real issues for which there is an abundance of evidence is just brushed under the table. It's swept aside with merely a response saying that there is not a genocide in South Africa.
But Ernst, don't you think,
is a legal,
Ernst,
technical definition.
If I may, Ernst, don't you think that
sure.
language matters in that case?
Well, absolutely, language matters. I'm not sure why you would suggest that I don't think that language matters. Obviously, again, maybe you can help me understand why you think I would be under the impression that it doesn't matter.
In terms of the US president calling it a genocide, don't you think then that other groups will see that as conflating issues, and then also it means that the actual truth gets lost in the narrative?
Well, the American president, Donald Trump, has his way of communicating. And he is a person, it seems, who prefers to communicate by hyperbole. Or hyperbole. And what I've experienced speaking with American journalists who have come to South Africa, one in particular have said to me, if the American president didn't say there was a genocide, I would not have taken interest in the issue in South Africa. I can see that maybe that's not the correct description of what is happening, but I can see now that there is a very serious crisis in South Africa. But my concern here is that, once again, this discussion is evidence of the same problem. The entire discussion is about whether there's a genocide or not, when there's broad agreement on that question. But why is this discussion not about the ongoing scourge of farm murders? Why is this discussion not about senior politicians, including the former president, chanting, kill the boer, kill the farmer? Why is this discussion not about the highest court in South Africa saying that politicians can continue chanting about the extermination of minorities? Why is this discussion not about the fact that there's more than 140 race laws in South Africa? Why is this discussion not about the fact that the South African government is trying very hard to change the constitution to erode the property rights clause so that they can confiscate private property without compensation? All of these things are happening. Why is this discussion not about the land invasions happening in South Africa? All of these things are just swept under the table, and we have this intellectual or academic debate about the meaning of genocide. We can agree on what the outcome of that discussion is, but there are some real issues that we are not getting to. And so the question is, indeed, why should language be important? It is important because there are some real issues, and these issues should be responded to. But we're not responding to this. These academics who have signed this letter are not responding, and with all due respect, you are not responding to that.
If I may just again interject, just in terms of the farm murders, the Institute of Security Studies said that there were 49 murders between 2023 and 2024 in farms. That constituted 0.2% of murders nationwide. Pete, why do you think that farm murders are taking such a strong element of this? And on the flip side, is there a sincere worry? Is there actually cause for what Ernst is saying? I mean, this can't all be wrong, can it?
Look, I can tell you now that farm murders is a real problem in South Africa. In the same way that the fact that 3 children are being murdered every day is a real problem. 10 women are killed every day. 70 people are killed in South Africa every day. Violence is a real problem. This extensive research was done, and I myself have done some research on farm murders in South Africa. Extensive research has shown it is part of the organized crime pattern in South Africa, that it's not politically motivated. It doesn't mean that 1 or 2 cases don't have a political background to it. It's not politically motivated. It has got the fact to do with the fact that people are isolated, that they are rural, that there is a perception and a real perception that white farmers are armed, because many of them are armed, and that they have guns and that they have money on the farms. We know the driving forces of farm murders in South Africa. We have a fair understanding. But if you are white and you think that because these farm murders are by and large committed by young black men, and you think it's them against us, and you identify yourself as a separate type of identity that needs to be protected and the privilege of protection, because you think of yourself as more civilized than everybody else, then, of course, you will think of yourself as a victim, and that you think that you are targeted in a very specific way. And I think that is the mistake that Ernst has made earlier. If he says, the President of the United States says these people, white farmers, are targeted very specifically with the idea of exterminating them as an identity, then that's exactly the perception that's going around. He can't now avoid the fact that he says the Americans knows everything, and when we pointed out that they're wrong, and he agrees that they are wrong, now suddenly say, we're just playing with words. All these things that he's taken about, we have a fair understanding of the problems of South Africa. We understand what the ANC is doing. We understand the destruction of property, of value, of assets in South Africa. We understand the opportunism. We understand the attack on the Constitution. We understand all these things. We're not naive about these things. All we're saying is the vast majority of the victims of bad governance, of unemployment, of bad policy decisions, of subjective and arbitrary decisions that was made by the ANC as a political party, black South Africans has paid the price for that. White South Africans are 50% more wealthy than they've ever been before. White South Africans occupy 64% of all business chambers in South Africa. They occupy. White South Africans go to the 30% best schools in South Africa. I can go on and on and on. All the statistics points to the privilege of white South Africans. There's no evidence that there's any form, either a genocide or a form of, that there are specific crimes perpetrated against white South Africans. No evidence.
Pete,
and
maybe you should tell us, how do we address this privilege that you are pointing to?
Thank you so much. Sorry, Ernst, I'm going to just ask you one more question to wrap this up. Just a response to that. Is there any proof that farm murders in particular are racially motivated as opposed to all the other crimes that we are seeing across the country? Can you safely say that?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, you mentioned that there are few farm murders in comparison to the larger murder statistics, but your own media publication has expressed concern about journalists who are being murdered in the execution of their duties.
But is that racially motivated?
It was counted there were about 87 journalists, but there are hundreds of thousands of journalists. Now, no one is saying that's just a small number. Don't be concerned about journalists who are being murdered. But when farmers are being murdered,
I'm just asking, Ernst, is this racially motivated? Because the police minister, Senzo Mchunu, back in March, he said that there were 5 black deaths to every 1 white death on farms. Will you dispute that?
It's a complex crime phenomenon, and different attacks happen under different circumstances. But there is an abundance of evidence of farm murders being committed with racist and political intent. We see this with perpetrators chanting "kill the Boer, kill the farmer," chanting political slogans while murdering their victims or while torturing their victims. In some cases, using the blood of the victims to write political slogans on the walls. We find this with perpetrators who have murdered farmers, who have testified under oath that they did this for political purposes. We have found this with perpetrators who have testified under oath that they have done this for racist motives, because they hate white people. And we see this with politicians chanting "kill the Boer, kill the farmer," and then murderers going out and chanting "kill the Boer, kill the farmer" while they actually attack these people. How can this happen? And then the obvious glaring fact that there's a political motive, not behind every single case, but behind many of these cases, be rejected so obviously in such a flagrant way. It's very clear that there's a political motive, and this should be addressed. And my concern is, why this particular crime phenomenon? It's the only crime phenomenon that I'm aware of, a violent crime phenomenon that is actively encouraged by the government. It's actively encouraged by politicians who chant to their supporters, go out and kill those people. And people keep rushing to the defense of the perpetrators.
I'm so sorry, we're going to have to wrap it up there.
The victims.
Ernst, unfortunately, I would continue this debate much longer. Unfortunately, that is where we have to wrap it up. Ernst Roets coming to us there from South Africa, as well as Piet Kroukamp, professor at Northwest University from the same country, talking about Afrikaners and this open letter signed against Donald Trump's policies.